Good morning, everybody. This is Ed Avis. I'm the Executive Director of the National Costumers Association, and I welcome you to our webinar this morning. I'm very pleased to have Terry Sinopoli from Arlene's Costumes with us today. Terry is going to show us how to do airbrush face painting and temporary tattoo services. This is something that her company has done for 25 years, and she does it very, very masterfully. So thank you for joining us. If you have questions during the presentation, we definitely encourage you to send them by using the Q&A panel on your screen. And you can send those questions at any time, and we will answer them, or Terry will answer them as appropriate. Terry, are you there?
I am here.
Great, thank you, Terry. We're going to start with a quick PowerPoint presentation that includes some of Terry's designs. So I'm going to flip to the first page, Terry, and go ahead and tell us what you see there.
Absolutely. So like I said, we've been doing this now for over 25 years. We actually got started at an NCA show. Morris was there showing off their new toy, airbrush face painting and temporary tattoos. So these are just some of the designs that we do kind of for special occasions. We've done, you can see the cupcake for birthday parties. The fire truck was also a birthday party one, and we've used it several times since for special events for towns and things like that that are showing off their big rigs and their equipment. Obviously Easter, the flower looking thing, that's actually our logo for our city, for Rochester, New York. The ones at the bottom, my brother actually had a kidney transplant back in December, and we had a really special fundraiser for him. So those are ones that we specifically made just for that occasion. The card one is one for a casino night, one of the colleges. So we have lots, and we have over 500 stock designs that we use on a regular basis, plus ones that we incorporate in from special occasions. So flip if you like. The next slide. These are ones from, obviously from Halloween. For quite a while, we kind of shied away from the Halloween season just because obviously our busy season was Halloween, but more and more people were requesting us to come out for their special Halloween events. So we started making a lot of these. Now 95% of the designs that you're seeing are ones that we've made ourselves or are working on. Some of them are a work in progress. And others we have purchased from various companies online or that we found in stores and things like that, and kind of tweak to make work the way that we like them. You're also going to see some like the ones on the right-hand side of your screen from our local Lilac Festival here, where they're actually on skin. Makes a difference. You can kind of see what it looks like and see how it looks sort of in 3D. I'm also wearing one already. My daughter decided to put one on me this morning. When you can see me a little bit later, I can show you. So the ones on the right are just some really popular ones that we've done, and we were hoping our Lilac Festival would have been next week for about 10 days. And so we were really hoping to be able to have that little lilac design. But the rest of them are just fun ones. Scooby-Doo, that's Chewbacca, of course. The POW, we use a lot for Comic-Cons and other fun things. The unicorns are kind of our biggest thing. Of course, what I'm wearing right now too. It started off as this big design, one you see in the middle. And we started off doing it in black with color around it, and we shrunk it so that we could use it at more events, and it has become something that is very, very popular. We can move on to the next slide.
Okay.
This next one is all fun summer stuff. So we do a lot in the summer. We do festivals and Of course, 4th of July events. Last 4th of July, we had 5 events all that day.
Yay.
Oh, I think they're not muted. Sorry. Um, the Beach Vibes one is one that we made. The Island is one that we actually purchased, but we kind of developed the way to do it ourselves with that neat sunset look in the background. You know, anything stars and stripes, of course, anything red, white, and blue, of course, are great. And we have a camp that we go to ourselves. We'll be heading out there next week and at the end of this week. And so the Let's Camp thing became a really big thing to start doing some camping stuff. So you can see that even in the summer, we're very busy. So at the time when it would normally be a little bit quieter, we can keep going. We can go ahead and go to the next slide.
Okay.
So these are a few different things. Again, some of these are a work in progress and some of these are that we've done for a long time. Christmas is very big around here for doing our airbrush face painting and temporary tattoos. We have a couple of weekends where we are nonstop. We do it for banks, we do it for all kinds of businesses, plus schools, plus towns. So a couple of these are ones that we've already been working with, and a couple of them are ones that we are trying to build into our library. And again, I wanted to show what it looked like on the face or on skin, so you can see our fun Winter Wonderland one that's a big face one, what it looks like on a child. And then all the animals and other creatures, you know, they're very popular. The moose there we actually did for a Canada Day at the Buffalo Bills. We'll be talking about the Bills in a minute. These are all ones from sports teams. We are the official face painters of the Buffalo Bills, the Buffalo Sabres, the Buffalo Bandits, which is lacrosse, the Rochester Lancers, which is professional soccer, and the Rochester Red Wings, which is AAA ball. So these are a couple of the designs from Rochester Red Wings. From the Sabres, we not only do their actual logos and get permission to do those, but we also do some other fun designs related to that. So we've got the flying hockey puck and the flaming hockey puck along with it. We can go on to the next one. Last year we got the great opportunity to work with Genesee Beer, actually the last couple of years, and we actually got to go to Watkins Glen, which is a pretty big race for race car fans. And they were the official beer of the Glen this past year, so we got to do an entire weekend down there. It's a couple hours drive for us, but we just stayed over and had a great time, and we worked very hard for that one. That's a 140-year-old brand, so that was pretty awesome to be able to. And of course the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo is an hour away from us, and we've now painted with them. This is going into our 3rd season. So as long as everything goes well with being able to play ball this year, we will be there again. And those are actually some designs from some of the games. And then these are our Rochester Lancers. We actually do indoor and outdoor for them. This is soccer. So you can see we can paint not just on arms and legs, but on the back of heads and on stomachs and chests and backs and pretty much you name it, we've done it. And those are actually some of the players down there on the bottom. So, these are some of the makeup and just some of the things that we use, and I can kind of show you once we flash over and I can show you some of the equipment. The first set is Fantasy Faces. It's actually what we got started with originally with Morris. The difference between what we use now and what we use then is that was all one type of makeup. So in other words, you're using all soap and water washable, or you're using all alcohol based. With what we're using now, which is from Soba Show Offs, it's a hybrid. So we can actually remove it with liquid soap, or we can remove it with alcohol, and that makes it easier for cleaning as well. And it also tells how to remove the makeup yourself. And we can go on from there. All right, and this is just some information about us. So if you have any questions in the future, and also our social media and our website, and there is information on our website about the airbrush face painting and temporary tattoos that we do.
Great, thanks, Terry. So attendees, we will, this is going to be recorded and posted. So if you want to see Terry's information here, obviously you can see it again, and we'll share it. Terry, are you ready for me to switch over so that they can see you?
I am.
Okay.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Terry.
Hello. So I brought home my our setup here, and you can see that it actually doesn't take up that much room. We usually ask for about 6 to 8 feet of space, and I'm just gonna hold this down for just a second so you can see. This is our stand. It's very similar to the original stand that we bought from Morris. We've since bought a couple of new ones, and you can buy them online. Our initial when we first bought these, they were about $3,000 for an entire set. Now we can get the stands for a lot less. The gun prices have gone up, of course, but I will. This has a bunch of makeup on it, but I can at least show. This is one of our makeup guns. It's actually a 2-stage, so you press down and pull back rather than just one motion, which means the paint can fly out faster. It gives you a little more control. So I'm going to plug in here, which means I might have to talk a little louder because I've got a compressor. So sorry if that's loud to anyone. But I'm going to put my other glove on. These are obviously non-toxic. However, we use gloves because we like our nails. So it also takes a lot less cleanup. I'm going to probably grab one of my children to come in so that I can show off on them a little bit. But basically, it's a very simple, easy spray, and it comes out very, very bright. So, and my daughter already sprayed on me earlier. You can see. Hope everybody's able to see all right. And I'm just going to show, do it this way. I'm used to painting backwards. But you can also blend colors if you're careful. I'm using the same exact design that she did on me earlier. So you can see how that comes out. We actually brought a bunch of different designs. Some of them you saw in there, they might be harder to see, but this is our dragon. We have some great, actually I can show you my board. This is the kind of board that we would use to set up. I'm gonna do this a little bit. So it has our name on it, and it shows the face and body. Down at the bottom is also our phone number. And these are removable tiles. And so you can put as many or as few as you'd like up there. We usually do about 15 to 20, sometimes a few more, a few less. We even brought some of our Christmas ones with us today, and our Halloween, and of course our Buffalo Bill. But we can change these up at will whenever we have a new event. We try to do more than one board similarly so that we can use the same types of designs over and over again and not have as much setup or tear down time. Let's see if I can get my stuff really fast so I can show you on a human. Matthew, Matt, here for I want to paint you. Okay, I apologize. I'm gonna put that back in. All right. It's okay. It's loud. Come here. You gotta get down. All right. Very loud. Okay. I'm gonna do a Christmas design. All right. So we're gonna start and just kind of wrap that right around him. Wait, what is going on the bottom screen? That's the next one. All right. Yep, I know. Thank you. All right. And then we're gonna take that off, and we just did a couple of colors. Can you turn this way so we can show everybody? Can you see? No, you can't see it that way. You gotta turn this way, buddy. Okay, now put your arm that way. There you go. It's a little tough to see, but it looks really bright. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm gonna unplug so we can talk. So yeah, so it's very quick. We can do each one in less than 30 seconds. Typically 60 to 80 designs in an hour, maybe more with a fast partner. So, and most of our staff has been doing it for quite some time. So we're able to do high speed, a lot of people in a very short period of time. And we always finish off with a little bit of glitter, unless they ask for us not to. And it shows it off very brightly.
You forgot to add the glitter.
I forgot to add the glitter. There you go. All right. Does anybody have any questions so far?
Remember that you can use your questions tab on your screen to ask questions, and feel free to ask them anytime. Terry, can you show us what one of the stencils looks like before you start using it?
Absolutely. We've got a couple here. So basically it's a plastic film, and we make, like I said, 95% of these ourselves. So these are flip-flops, and obviously they can be painted in any color. We have them on the board in blue and red. These we made with our Cricut machine. We found the general design online and then kind of tweaked it to make it work for us. This is similar. This is one, it's actually Rudolph. Tough to see there, but probably better that way. And he was originally one that we had bought years ago in metal. And we, once the metal breaks, it's very hard to reuse them after that. So now that we can cut our own, and we just and we can pull it up whenever we need to. And we actually have it in Dropbox. So my mom makes a lot of the designs. I help her to make a lot of them, and then she cuts them on the Cricut machine. So I can just load them into Dropbox, and she can take care of them from there, work on them from there.
And Terry, what's a Cricut machine?
They're actually a craft machine. You've probably seen a lot of the products that come out of them. If you've seen any of like the water bottles that have vinyl writing on them, or a lot of the car stickers, things like that. People are selling products like that on Etsy a lot, so you can use it for those types of products as well. We use it primarily for these because they cut them just perfectly. So this is a dragon, and it's another design that we've used a lot. It's one of our most popular, along with the unicorn. I had mentioned Pow before. That's our little Pow guy, and he's great for when we're doing superheroes and Comic-Cons. For our Star Wars, of course, Star Wars Day coming up next week, I've got Chewbacca. So they're a lot of fun, and the kids love them, but I'll be honest with you, the adults love them too, just as much. There's our Buffalo Bill, of course. So,
And Terry, can you explain how you apply more than one color using one stencil?
Exactly, yep. We can apply more than one color. Like in the Buffalo Bills case, it's just basically two very simple color applications. They don't overlap. They're not meant to. It's just blue and red. However, in some of them, like in the case today, I only have so many of the guns with me. We didn't bring a lot because we wanted to keep it down to a minimum. So if I wanted to make purple, for example, I can overlap them if I'm careful and I don't use a lot of extra force. So again, I'm going to go backwards here. Oh, I gotta plug in. Sorry. My apologies. I'm used to just having it running the whole time. There we go. So I'm gonna spray some blue again. And right on top of it, very lightly, I'm gonna spray some red and you get a nice purple. You can also do the same thing with yellow and red for orange. You can do the same thing with, we found green and red works well for brown. It's wonderful for our little Chewbacca guy there. It's just basically a lot of control and it takes some practice. I used to spray very, very heavily and it just took a lot of practice for me to tone that down and get that makeup flowing out just the right way and just very calm and a soft touch.
And Terry, when you are doing something that has two distinct colors, like the Buffalo Bills logo, are there two stencils that you use, one for each color?
You can do that, and we have done it before. Like for example, smiley faces or emojis. If you've seen those, you can do, or a soccer ball is another great example. You can do the background and then do those designs on top of it. In the case of the Buffalo Bill, I don't need to. There's actually little cuts in here, and you can see them right in here. And that allows me to break it up. I'm gonna plug this back in again, and I'll show you how we paint that Buffalo Bill, because that's a good example. And we do this one on a regular basis. This one has a very specific way it has to be painted because the buffalo is always running forward, so it has to be painted a certain way. So we spray that blue on there, and then that red goes right down the middle. If you overlap a little bit, it's not a big deal, but it looks very clean because of those cuts and breaks.
Nice.
So there you go.
Terry, we have several questions.
Yeah, sure.
Let me just take them in order here. First, somebody asks, what is the airbrush machine? Or maybe she means like, what brand is the airbrush machine you use?
No problem. The guns themselves are Vegas, although we could use others. These are ones that we just prefer. Again, they're a two-stage, so when I spray, when I push down, it doesn't just spurt out at me. And then when I pull back, then I get that makeup coming out. So when I first push down, I'm gonna feel some air, and then when I pull back, I'm gonna do that. So these are Vegas. There are many, many other ones. There are ones that where the makeup just loads, you pour the makeup in, or there are ones where it pulls the makeup up. Ours are bottom loading, but we can use a little bottle, which makes it a lot easier. And especially if we are at events like the Buffalo Bills games where we're using a lot of blue or a lot of red, we can just attach a whole bottle and not just a small amount to be able to use it.
Okay.
So the Vegas are the great ones for us. And I'm also using as part of it, there are many parts, but this is an air compressor, and you can find them in different sizes and different, this is an older one, it's a little bit bigger. It's a pretty durable one. A small one, if you're working with two painters, which we usually are, sometimes will not give you enough strength to be able to have both of you painting at the same time. So they're good for smaller projects like birthday parties and things, but this is a little bit heavier duty, and I can always get voltage and things like that for you at a later time. But yeah.
Got it. Great. Thank you.
I know there were some other questions.
Yes. Someone asks, what do you charge per tattoo design?
Absolutely. When we are at a festival like our Lilac Festival, then we do charge per design. That can change year to year, but for the most part, for the last several years, we've been the same. $4 per design that are like this, these little ones. Any of these with these white backgrounds. Any of those bigger ones that you saw, that big unicorn, the big snowflakes one, those are $7. And if we're doing like a full face where we might do both sides, then that's $10. We keep it very inexpensive on purpose. Most people, especially when they're going to a big festival like we have around here, they're already paying a lot. They're paying for food, they might be paying for parking, they might be paying for all the different activities. So we try to keep it relatively inexpensive. Now, when we do parties, whether they're colleges or whether they are the Buffalo Bills, different things like that, we charge in advance. So the individual does not pay, and that allows more people to be able to experience it. It also creates very long lines. So we have to make sure that we have very good painters on for those events.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you do a festival, for example, like the Lilac Festival, are you considered a vendor? So you pay rent or something for the booth?
Yes, yeah, we're considered vendors. Lilac Festival charges us, because we're so small, we can kind of go anywhere. They don't really charge us for a one set place. They charge us for how many of the stands we're going to have throughout the park at the time. So in the past few years, we've basically done 3 or 4 of our stands at various points around the park, and we get charged by that.
Okay,
But I'm sure every festival would do it differently with you. It just depends.
got it.
So
Okay, here's a good question. What do you do if
otherwise,
you
we're
make
charged
a
by the hour.
mistake?
Otherwise, what if we make a mistake? Rubbing alcohol is your friend. So we have big bottles of rubbing alcohol that you can buy, Sam's Club, Costco, any of those types of places. We have found that they do wonders in these neat little bottles. And right now it's only about that full. So I would take we just keep a roll of paper towels and we spray a little, and then you can kind of clean it up, and it cleans up very quickly. The other thing that I do is, if I know I'm going to be at an event, sometimes I'll grab some baby wipes and I will bring those with me. And you can see how fast it cleans up. I had my hands pretty messy before. I just rubbed that over it and it cleaned it right up. So, but a baby wipe will do similar, especially on a face. I try not to put alcohol on a face. It can be a little strong and a little bit startling for little ones. So, yeah.
Got it. Okay, so once you clean them off, then you can just do it again, right?
Just do it again. Yep.
Great. Okay, then we have several questions that are about the material you're using. For example, what is the plastic film or something that that the pattern is cut into?
It's a 4mm plastic film that we use. You can buy it online. You can buy it at your local craft stores. Sometimes they sell it in a big sheet. Sometimes it's in a roll, and then we put that into the Cricut machine and use that to be the cutout. So, and then what we do is this is actually electrical tape, duct tape, and we wrap the edges so that it's easier to hold and gives us a little more place to hold on to. Otherwise, the stencil itself is only about that big. This just gives me some extra room to hold on to.
Got it.
And we do that with all of them. We just wrap each edge with them to give us a little more room to hold.
Okay.
So.
Here's a question. Do you always use stencils, or do you also do some just freehand?
We prefer to use stencils. It makes sure that it looks the same every time. We can get somewhat creative with it. You saw on the pictures, there was the big unicorn, which again, we have the little unicorn here, which is just a shrunken version. But in the bigger unicorn, what we would do is we would paint it on black, and then around the edges, we would paint colors. So you can get creative with it. Sometimes I've done like rainbows behind it. I've painted it at Pride festivals before and done rainbows behind it and then put the design on, things like that. There are ways to still use the stencils, but get creative with them as well.
All right, okay. All right, here's a question. Do you have any training videos online that you've made?
We haven't gotten into the training videos so much. When we've been at events, we've painted a few times and just shown kind of how we do it, but I think I'd like to get into more of that. We actually do well, it used to be a weekly show. Now we kind of do a daily show now that people are home more. It's just kind of a 10, 15-minute what's going on in the world and in our world, and we call it way more than Halloween. So that's on our social media pages. And so We might do a little bit of that coming up in the next couple days, and then we'll see how the response is. But yeah, we would love to get into doing some tutorials and things.
Great, good idea.
Mhm.
Attendees, let me remind you that questions are welcome, so please send some. Okay, here's another one, Terry.
Yeah,
Do you have to clean the stencil each time before you use it on the next person?
not necessarily. The makeup dries very quickly. If it's a very hot day or a very cold day, it can get gunked up on the material kind of quickly. So that's when we, again, take our paper towel and our trusty bottle and we spray it off a little bit and just get a nice little coating on there. And then we take that paper towel and brush it off. And you're just careful with some of those little tiny edges, but it wipes off very quickly, especially with that stronger rubbing alcohol. And believe me, it's strong. But we use the 91%. You can get it, I think, as low as 80% or 75%. But we like the 91. It's very fast acting. It collects all that makeup for you, and it can clean up really quickly. And I go through gloves like crazy, but
Okay, and here's another one. How long do the stencils last? How many times can you use them?
oh, we can use them time and time again. It truly just depends on how rough you are when you paint, I guess, or if they happen to get caught on something, then unfortunately they could rip, I suppose. But these are pretty durable. I mean, I'm giving this some good force here, and they can last a long time. So we use them over and over again. We actually clean them for the most part in between jobs, and then we just use a little, if we need to, like a little nail scrubber, like you would use on your nails, like manicure scrubber, and we just use that. We let them soak for a little bit in the rubbing alcohol first, and then they clean right up.
Okay. Terry, here's another question. Do you have to, or do you ever prep the skin?
We actually don't have to prep the skin except on hot days, which unfortunately we don't get many of around here except for right in the summer. If someone has on sunscreen or a lot of lotion, and you can kind of tell if they've got sunscreen on, their skin's gonna feel greasier. Lotion, same thing. Um, a lot of people with darker skin tones tend to wear lotion on a regular basis. So typically what I'll do is the same thing. I will just say, do you have sunscreen or lotion on? And they'll tell me yes. And I'll say, well, I'm just gonna take a little off because otherwise it might not stay on as well. And they've never given me a hard time. And I just tell them, afterwards you can pat a little more around it, just don't go right on top of it. And we just rub a little right along the skin. It takes off whatever lotion they might have on. And then as soon as that dries and you can give it a little dry, you can go right on top of it.
Okay. Here's another question. How do you clean the airbrushes?
Yep. Each one of these airbrushes actually breaks down. I have my one here that is it had a little incident earlier. So we break these up. So each part comes off. So that's the tip. And this is the inside tip. And that comes off. And we can break down each part of this. And we actually have a little ultrasonic machine, kind of like they use for jewelry, that can clean them, or we can do them by hand. There's the needle that comes out. And actually all of this can break down as well. So I won't take it that far because it'll take me forever to get it all back together. But each part can get cleaned off. Sometimes, I just sent the plunger flying. Sometimes makeup gets caught inside here, so we clean that all out. Some good things to have on hand are like pipe cleaners, or the little pipe cleaners with the holders. You can use those, and we get right inside there and we clean them up if we need to. But otherwise, the ultrasonic machine cleans them up pretty well, and it runs pretty fast.
And do you have to clean them during the event or only afterwards?
Not typically, unless it's just really, if it's really, really hot or really, really cold. That temperature makes a big difference on the makeup. We try not to paint if it's exceptionally hot or exceptionally cold, but we don't always have that luxury of making that decision. When we're out face painting for Buffalo Bills games, um, when you're toward the end of that season, our last game this past year was December 29th. It was 25 degrees. It was cold. We have heat inside the tents and stuff, but it doesn't always help. So sometimes they get a little gunky, so you have to kind of clean them up a little bit with some, again, rubbing alcohol. When I go to events like that, I bring a whole bottle, like a big bottle, and we just spray it as we need it.
All
But it
right.
cleans up pretty much everything.
Okay, here's a question. How do you get around the copyright issues regarding Star Wars, Scooby-Doo, etc.?
Yeah, most of those, because we're not doing them at like Disney itself. We're not usually having an issue with things like that. The Buffalo Bills, any of the sports teams, they give us permission. It helps them. A lot of them also are sold, so they're expecting people to use them. You know, you can buy them. You can purchase them online. So typically they expect you to be able to use them for different things. Some people use them in their rooms, they use them for decorations. So it is an option to be able to use them, and typically not a problem when it comes to copyright.
Okay. Terry, can you describe your how you established a relationship with the teams that you work with?
Um, for the teams, for most of them, they usually saw us at different events, or we have worked with um, other companies or other entertainment companies, and they have seen us out. So a lot of times they'll come up to us and ask. Otherwise, when I am at events, if I am at festivals or different things, I'll go around and talk to a lot of the companies that are there, especially if there are teams there, and introduce myself and just say, if we do this, would you like to come and check us out? A lot of times they will, and we'll start working with them on a regular basis. The Red Wings, it just happens that my dad went to school with marketing managers, so we started talking. So a lot of it is just business building, relationship building, no different than you would do for your regular clientele, you know, trying to get, if whether you do rentals, whether you do retail, whatever you do, balloons, I know a lot of people do. So, you know, it's really just that business relationship building. We also do a lot of networking. So I'm in a couple networking groups to try to establish those types of relationships also.
Okay. Terry, when you are at an event, can you think of some like best practices or things that you have learned over the years that you know make people comfortable or make people happy, or something that maybe isn't obvious?
Um, when there's a long line, which there can be at a lot of these events, we make sure to let everyone know to take a look again at our board. We always have it, this is just the front part of it, but we usually have it up on an actual like A-frame sign, and it's standing out there a little bit away from our stand. And we tell them, know what you want before you come up. It helps because then the kids can make a decision ahead of time. We also, some of the companies that we've seen out at events will have big flip books of all these different designs. We don't do that for the specific reason that it's too many to go through. A lot of times we have a huge line. We don't have time for people to be flipping through books. And we have had the question, well, is that all you have? And we tell them, yeah, it's what we brought today, but we have over 500 stock designs. And if there's something special that you'd like for a special event, we'll be happy to work with you. And we have, we do that quite a bit. So that's a big thing. I think just talking to them, discussing with them, you know, even though they might be standing in a big line, you know, having conversations, joking around while people are waiting, and it just kind of alleviates a lot of that.
Okay, good, thank you. Terry, here's another question. And you touched on this, but maybe you can describe it a little better. And this person has asked to cut out the pattern, what tool do you use? And I think what you use is the Cricut machine, right? But can you
Correct.
describe what that is exactly?
Yeah, it kind of looks like a little copier, I guess, like or like a scanner. And there are actual sheets or rolls, like I said, of this material. And it's very thin, very, very thin. So it just slides into the machine, and on your computer screen, you can see the designs that you're using. And we actually use very, very simple software. We use built right into any computer that has Windows 10 is something called Paint 3D. And so we use that to create the design, get it, like if we found something online, there might be background borders or different designs behind it. I cut all that away. I make the design ahead of time, and then we can put it into the machine. We have to make sure that it has lots of these little cuts and things because big areas don't cut well. They tend to fall out. So that's why you see a lot of these little tiny, tiny lines all in here. It helps to keep the actual stencil in one piece so that you can paint through it a lot easier and so that it doesn't fall apart when you do things like this.
And Terry, is cricket spelled like the insect cricket?
Cricicuit. It's spelled a little bit differently.
Oh, cricket.
You can find it at most craft stores. I know Joann's has them. I know Michael's has them. So you can find them, and then they have all kinds of different tools for the different crafts that you might be doing. So you might get a different type of material to cut when you're doing those designs on your water bottles or on your car logos. These are a very specific kind that we use because obviously we don't want them to stick to some. There are ones that you can get like that where they are stickers, but those are a completely different thing.
Okay, great. All right, that's the end of the questions, Terry. Attendees, if you have any other questions, please go ahead and send them. Terry, is there anything else that has not come up that you think people would like to know on this? That someone should have asked you?
I think, when it comes to the business side of things, we talked a little bit about that, but, basically we keep in touch with all of our clientele throughout the year. Some of them we do multiple events for, others maybe we just do one event. But as we get closer to each event that's coming up, if we know that it's coming up, for example, we might have someone who does a Christmas party every year. If I haven't heard from them by the beginning of November, I'm on email saying, we'd love to work with you again. We're just curious if you are in need of our services again. And if so, how can we help? And I would say 9 times out of 10, they're like, oh, definitely. I was just about to get in touch with you, or, oh, thank you for getting in touch with me first. Also, every year at the end of January, we send out letters to schools, some companies, YMCAs, things like that, that we haven't done business with prior, or that we maybe haven't done business with in a couple of years, and offer a little bit of a discount and just explain what we do, the fact that we are, the official face painters of all these teams, or that we've worked with all these schools, and just send out a little letter explaining what we do. Sometimes we'll include our little brochure in it or things like that, and just to introduce ourselves to maybe a new crowd of people. A lot of times with this last year's batch, we sent them out to all the PTAs, and that definitely got some attention. They love that. And we got quite a few new jobs right before everything happened.
That's great. Terry, we have some more questions.
Sure.
How long does the tattoo generally last?
That's a great question. For the most part, they last we say a couple of days, 2 to 3 days, or until you take it off with liquid soap or a little bit of rubbing alcohol. That, of course, varies with the skin type. My kids make them last for days if I let them. And I tell people that they laugh and we have a good laugh about it, but it's true. They'll leave them on for days and days. But for some people, they'll come off relatively quickly, and it might just be because they have oilier skin. So we try to, like I said, take a little bit of that off beforehand.
Okay. Where is the easiest place on a young child to place the airbrush stencil?
Arms and legs. Most of the time for a young child, as much as they want it on their face, they don't want it on their face. They get nervous. I mean, you're coming at them with something that reminds them of a shot. And so, as I'm coming toward you with the camera, it's a little intimidating. So what I usually recommend, especially if a young child is like, I want it on my face, but then they're shying away, I say, why don't we start with your arm and let's see how you do. And then if you want another one, we always allow the kids to get back in line, especially if we're at an event where it's paid ahead of time. So we just ask that they get back in line each time and they can get as many as they want. Most of the time they are covered by the end of the day. Mm-hmm. So once they've gotten it once and they're okay with it and they're good, then they usually come back and they let me do it on their face, or maybe they'll be like, nope, just my arm, thanks. And if it's nice weather out and we've got a short situation, then we are covered head to toe.
That's great. Here's one. You did touch on this at the beginning of the presentation, but maybe you can describe it a little more. What makeup do you use for the tattoos?
Of course. The makeup that we use now is actually from a company called Soba. It's Show Offs. You can find them online. Ours is actually a hybrid, so it can be used with liquid soap to take it off, or with rubbing alcohol. So it's a combination of a water base and an alcohol base. Whereas the makeup that we used to use, so we find this a lot easier. We're not lugging around multiple types of makeup, and the kids can take it off when they want. If the mom says they have to have a bath, they have school tomorrow, and they go to a Catholic school, done. It's off. If they want it on for a few days because it's summer vacation, good to go. They can keep it on.
Got it. And how long does a bottle of makeup last? How many tattoos?
It's hard to say that just because it depends on the type of designs that you're doing. For the most part, if I'm doing a normal event, maybe a couple of hours, maybe a school event or something like that, I can go through maybe a quarter to a half a bottle of each type. If I'm at the Buffalo Bills game and I'm doing constantly the entire time, red and blue, red and blue, red and blue, and I'm doing beards and I'm doing heads and I'm doing everything else, I'm going to go through probably a bottle a game. But that's 4 hours of almost nonstop painting.
Oh, so it lasts a long time.
It can last a long time, yeah. I mean, we don't order that often throughout the year. But, we, of course, like anyone else, look for specials. And sometimes we can find makeup at better prices from various vendors and things. So, you have to have relationships with your vendors, too. So.
Got it. Okay, well, I don't see any more questions. So Terry, I'm going to say thank you very much for your time and your expertise, and for how well and effectively you explained it all. It's fantastic, and thank you. And I'm sure that the attendees enjoyed this. And attendees, let me remind you that this was recorded, so we'll post it. So if you want to watch it again. And maybe in the next newsletter, we'll make some written key points that Terry talked about so we can share with everybody.
That'd be great.
But all right. Thank you very much, Terry.
Just let me know if you have any questions. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care, everyone. This ends our meeting for today.